This episode opens not on Iorlas, but not far either. In the woods nearby, along the greenway, a small copse of trees stands in the otherwise sea of grass and hills that roll north of Bree in the North Downs, and all of these places in the northern corner of Middle-earth that we find ourselves in. And a small copse of trees stands where, upon blasting the horn that he had found, a flock of crows is flushed out of these trees, and we follow for a brief moment, flying up into the sky and circling around, looking all over the fields. We see a vast panorama view of the fields along the greenway, and we see the burnt homestead that Iorlas is currently investigating. We also see quite a few other ruins of buildings and ancient structures and the like, as this crow is looking down, and it zooms in and it zooms in, and we see Iorlas as he cautiously steps forward to put his hand on the forehead and mane of the horse that approached at the blaring of the horn. And this crow looks, and we see Iorlas's face, and then the camera shifts and we are no longer looking through the crow's eyes, but instead we are looking up into the sky, not from the direction of this ruined homestead, but instead somewhere from the north, as these crows are cawing and they can be heard in the distance. Here in Fornost Erain, that trumpet blast also stirred something awake, and we don't see what it is, but the walls of this place, this ancient capital, this ruinous city, they're not empty. Not entirely. And lastly, in the lore of Middle-earth, crows were long considered servants and spies of Saruman the White. Does Saruman see anything? Will a message get to Saruman from these crows, not far from where one of his own, Drustin the mercenary, has fled and failed in his mission, if not significantly been waylaid? We're going to ask the telling table. I'm going to put it 50-50. Anything 6 or above is a yes. And that is a 6. So yes, word from these crows will reach Saruman about what is going on with Iorlas the Ranger. Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the One Ring 2nd Edition Strider Mode here on Rene Plays Games podcast. I am very excited to dive back into this because we are definitely going to be arriving at Fornost Erain, the fortress and ancient capital of men that fell to the shadow long ago, and it is something that Gandalf has asked Iorlas to investigate. But before we dive into this episode, I do just want to do some announcements because it's officially June, so brand new month. Same old schedule, kind of, but, you know, we could talk a little bit about what it's going to be. Obviously, weeks 1 and 3 are going to be more the One Ring 2nd Edition, me playing in my solo series, which is going to get quite a bit longer than initially intended, but that's fine. That's cool. I'm loving this. Then the second week, the Perspective Checks interview this month is with Meadow, aka Howdy Love Darlin M, all over the internets. She is a wonderful GM and actual play performer and cosplayer and game designer. She makes such fun games, and we talk about that a lot in our Perspective Checks interview because I really admire Meadow as somebody who is willing to take the time and figure out what it is that she wants the game to do and find the mechanics to match it and get a little weird with them, or, you know, play around with the usual expectations of what these games play like and twist and bend them a little bit. And it was a great interview. I had a blast. Hopefully Meadow will be coming back soon. We teased maybe doing a mining media episode together, and I'm going to reach out to her and follow up on that soon. And then the last episode this month is actually, there's 2. There's a bonus episode this month. There are 5 Tuesdays in June, so there will probably be a Design Diaries, but I'm not quite sure yet. I'm actually working on getting a couple of games out. If I do a design diaries, it'll be on Mech Cities 3, which me and Rosso have been working on, and my city is pretty well into it, and I know he has quite a lot of ideas for his. I just don't think we'll get it out for this month, so I may end up doing a one-player one-shot or something different. Still not sure what the bonus is going to be, but stay tuned. You'll know soon enough, and hopefully we'll have a blast with it. And now we can dive back into the One Ring 2nd Edition and see what Iorlas finds, following up and following through with one of his 2 quests for Gandalf the Grey in Fornost Erain. Okay, so before we get started and just keep moving on, a few things that I just want to do. I realized that we had our encounter here in this hex where we reached the ruined homestead from the rumors that we got during our fellowship phase last time. However, I did just roll on the events table for one of these, the events on the Greenway tables, and I didn't think about the solo journey events, and I'm not sure if I needed to really do that. I think it provided exactly what we needed as far as events at the homestead, but just for fun and just to really stress Iorlas out before we get to a probably very dangerous location, I'm just going to do the solo journey events table here and see what we come up with. That is a 2, which says ill choices, and then I will roll a d6 to see what the roll that I will need to succeed on for ill choices is, and I get a 4, which says Lost Quarry. I will need to succeed at a hunting test to follow the tracks, and the consequences of the skill roll would be that I would gain 1 shadow point for dread. Ooh, interesting. I think this actually fits very perfectly. Iorlas has arrived at this homestead, and he has searched the rubble. He has found and blown the horn, some wondrous item that he was just compelled to blow into, and it echoed out this resonant boom, and it was this powerful surge that coursed through him, and something primal to just his ancestry as a man, his heritage as a man of Middle-earth, men as in the species, echoes. It kind of resonates within him. It, clatters and vibrates it in his bones. And when he opens his eyes, this horse has galloped in front of him, and I think that sense of dread is, he sees this horse and he puts his hand on it to ensure that it is not here to, run into him and defend this homestead or anything like that, and realizes that this horn has called it, and he has made a connection with this horse. And I think that before we get into the dread of it all, I do just want to say that I've come up with a name for this horse. Iorlas does not know its actual name. There's nothing in the stables that said that, so he's going to name it with Sindarin, or Kenya even, which is the older formal Elvish tongue that Númenóreans are known to use, and by default, I guess his Dunedain heritage might have lingering vocabulary from this ancient, very formal Elven, and he's going to name it Romhilia, which is roughly a translation or kitbash of the words of to follow the sound of a trumpet. So that's very fitting. And then, because this is a horn, he holds it in his hand. I don't think Iorlas knows the name of it, but for the record, I have named it because, again, I found some online translations. Let's mess around with Sindarin. Let's mess around with Kenya. Let's mess around with the wonderful linguist and philologist that was J.R.R. Tolkien's world, and just play around with some of the words that he created, the structure of the language that he created. So I have named this horn Corihel, Corihel. It is the horn of the hunt, because one of the 2 blessings that it gives us is to awe, and the other is to hunting. So I think that in a strange way, as a hunting horn, I think that it's probably designed to do things like flush out enemies, or maybe even draw them in. Maybe there is like a magical property to it that almost compels your quarry to show itself for a hunt. and awe obviously would make you seem large. You're blasting this horn. So, all right. So we've got that, and now we have to deal with our ill choices journey event. We're going to need to make a hunting roll, which again, our horn does give us +2 dice on, but that's if we roll this horn, which I don't think Iorlas is keen to do again so soon. I think instead, this is just going to be a straight hunting roll, because after all of this, he has ensured that this horse, Romilia, is going to be at least docile and willing to be read, but ridden? Clearly I'm not the linguist here. However, this horse is docile at the moment and willing to at least hold Iorlas on its back, but we need to now track the orcs that are behind whatever happened at this homestead. Iorlas was imagining it must have been Drustin. He ran away, he fled Bree with his accomplices, and they got away. And when you hear these people escaped, where would they have gone? Oh, that there's a homestead burnt up the road. Seems likely that these people probably did it, but he finds out it wasn't. So we're going to have to roll a hunting check to avoid 1 shadow point, which would be, I think, the first time we would take shadow points. So let's find out. There's greed and there are misdeeds. So dread is the one that is pretty much the external source of shadow. Greed is an internal source of shadow, or even, observing it can cause you to become more tempted by this evil presence, this shadow. And the other is misdeeds, which is when you do things that are objectively wrong, and you should know better. Probably not our good boy Iorlas, but here we go. So we begin tracking these orcs, and I think that on the back of Romilia, Iorlas is making great pace, and we are going to go right into another journey here, as we need to move 2 hexes to the north, but we are moving into the Darklands from the Wildlands, so this is going to get a little more dangerous. Let's go ahead and look again real quick about traveling into these locations. Okay, so when traveling in Wildlands versus Darklands, the only difference is that when we make our journey event roll, we are going to roll 2d12 and take the worst result. So that's pretty cool. And I think with that, we are going to roll our travel check, which is favored for us. So we roll 2d12 plus 2d6. And also, technically, I'm going to be able to make it here regardless of if I succeed on this or not, because the event would happen 2 hexes away if I fail, and that would bring us to Fornost Erain. But I'm going to roll anyway just to see. And oh boy, I rolled an Eye of Sauron and a 2 and then 9, so that actually is a failure on my travel roll, even favored against a TN of 12. So that is going to be a failure, which means that our event is going to happen right as we enter Fornost Erain. And I think that I really do just want to ramp up the tension here. So I'm going to make a roll. This is going to be 2d12 on the journey events table, and we're going to take the worst of these to see what the journey event is as we arrive at the ancient capital. I got a Gandalf rune and a 4. So a 4 would be a mishap. Let's go ahead and roll on the mishaps table, and I get a 5. Okay, I like this. It just says rough terrain. I'm going to have to make an explore check to traverse this terrain, to even approach this haunted city. The men of Middle-earth, those in Bree and the surrounding regions, not the Rangers. The Rangers supposedly are not afraid to go to Fornost Erain and occasionally do so, but the men of the north call this ancient capital, this abandoned haunted place, Dead Man's Dyke. And we are going to go ahead and roll our explore, which is 2d6, so most of these are just going to be like this, a d12 and a 2d6 to overcome a target number of 15, which is a high one, but we do it with an 8 on the d12, and we do get a 6 on one of our d6s, which is a Tengwar rune, which allows us to have a special success. So let's go ahead and look at our options for that as we traverse this area and enter Fornost Erain. So despite this rough terrain being in our way, I think that maybe Iorlas has to hop off of Romilia and tether him to a nearby tree, and maybe the horse is even kind of bristling at the dreadful nature of this place, if you will, because of legends of being haunted and dangerous and things like that. But Iorlas, undaunted, knowing that he has to come here and investigate for Gandalf, traverses to a high point and finds his way down and around and into a part of the old city. I mean, Fornost Erain. Fornost is literally a word that means northern fortress. So, I mean, this is not a old city of great wealth. This was a fortress of men in the north before it fell. So I think the obvious special success here is going to be to go quietly. Iorlas is able to, once safely hitching up Romelia, or at least, I don't even think he hitches up the horse, because I think this horse is too stubborn for that, right? He only managed to befriend and earn the trust of this horse through this magical horn. So I think that he brings the horse to a relatively safe place and kind of hopes that, again, maybe throws another apple or something like that and just says, like, this is the general area of where I will find you when I come back out, or I will blow the horn as needed. And he is going to go quietly as he enters Fornost Erain. And now, there are tables, there are little bits of blurbs in the core rulebook for the One Ring 2nd edition. I have looked through the other source books that I have for the One Ring for things about Fornost Erain and have not found much. So we're going to use the table that is around this and just kind of get some ideas for things that we might run into in this city until we eventually find a central location that might hint at what Gandalf was hoping Iorlas would find here. And let's just go ahead and have some fun with this. I think we're going to roll Explore. I think we're going to roll Scan. I think we're going to roll quite a few checks and then use those as launching points for rolling on the table and seeing what happens. So the rough terrain continues into the city itself. The book says that ever since this city fell to the Witch King of Angmar, who only sat on the throne for a few months or a short time, the scars have been left on this place, and now the roots of hundreds of years old trees have broken apart most of the structures of this city. Stonework and masonry and great, incredible architecture of a lost age is just crumbling here, and it is uninhabited by men and seemingly by animals and by anything. This place is simply empty. It is devoid of life. And I'm going to actually make Iorlas roll against dread here, I think. I think this place is not just unsettling, it is innately and existentially terrifying. So to make a test to resist the effects of dread, I'm going to need to make a shadow test using Valor. And luckily for us, Valor is one of the two stats that we increased during our fellowship phase. We actually got +1 to Valor to get the Archette bow from Fitch Talltree. So my Valor stat is currently 2, which means that I'm going to roll a d12 feat die and 2 skill dice for my rank in Valor. And I am rolling this against my heart TN. So this is a TN of 12, and we're going to attempt to resist this dread here in the city of Fornost Erain. Oh no, I got an 8 on the feat die, but then I rolled a 2 and a 1 on my skill dice to make an 11 total, which is a failure. I'm going to give myself, I think, 1 shadow point, because I think that this is more natural catastrophe, kind of terrifying, but it's not immediate. It's not witnessing some atrocity or something awful. It's more seeing the effects of long-term neglect and what could have been. That is going to mark our first point of shadow. We have 1 shadow at the moment, and our current hope score is 10 out of a maximum of 12. If our shadow score ever meets or exceeds our hope, we become miserable, and then there are penalties associated with that I'd hopefully I don't have to get into, but we will see what happens as Iorlas continues to explore this once great city of the north of men. So that rough terrain is continuing, and Iorlas can see the roots just breaking apart everything that was once here, and walking around in the stillness, the emptiness, even though it is day, the cloud cover and shadows that fall from all of these crumbling skeletal structures just set him a little off edge. And I think that we should probably I can roll scan first before explore, I guess, maybe. That seems like a good idea. Yeah, we'll roll. There's also awareness. I think, yeah, let's roll awareness. I'm going to roll 3 things just for fun. And depending on how these rolls go, I'm going to then roll on the tables in the core rulebook just to get events that might seem relevant or fun, or, fun in the adventure way, not fun in the we're having a great time here in this haunted city way. So let's go ahead and roll awareness first. That's going to be our best stat. We have 3 ranks in this, so we're going to roll a d12 and 3 d6 against a TN of 12. Oh my gosh, that is another terrible roll. That is a 3 on the feat die, 2 2s, and a 1 on the 3d6 for a total of 8. That is a failure on awareness. Oh boy, and now this is where this is going to get crazy. We are in the Darklands, and normally that means you roll ill-favored on your journey events roll. However, I'm spending an extended time here in Fornost Erain, and I don't really have any rules for traveling within a location like this. There are some pre-made locations, and there's one in another one of the books that I'm going to hopefully, maybe we'll see, use for Aaron Vorn. However, I'm just gonna try and play this almost like a skill challenge where I'm gonna roll a number of skills, hopefully succeeding on enough of them that we reach our destination, and every time I fail there's going to be a complication. That's how I'm running it solo at my table for what feels right in this moment. If you want to run it differently, if you play this solo, by all means, hopefully this isn't wildly wrong, but I'm just going to do that. I'm going to roll, because we're in the Darklands and I just failed on awareness, I'm going to roll ill-favored on the Ruins and Broken Stones event table here on page 197 of the core rulebook. And I get a 3 and a 4. Ooh, I like both of these, but I think one is going to step on the toes of another. So we're going to do 3, which says Home Brought to Ruin. Iorlas is continuing to investigate this city. He's still in the outer portions of the city, just beyond the enormous wall and fortifications that make out the outer edge of Fornost Erain. Many of the buildings have collapsed and crumbled in on themselves. Roads are barely recognizable as you would have gotten around this city in ages past. However, he does find a relatively well intact home. It is something he can see is being held up. It's sturdy. There is a tree that is, growing alongside it, maybe pushing in on a corner of it, but it's standing strong, it's standing tall, it is firm. However, looking inside of it, despite the light of the day and what should illuminate and pass through windows and cracks in the stones, just disappears into shadow. But Iorlas knows something must be here. Something must be in this city. What is it that Gandalf wishes him to learn? Iorlas is going to take a step into this home. I'm going to roll scan just to kind of look around this place quickly, and I will still read off what the description says in this table, but I just want to see if scan will give us anything else. Now, this is probably a bad idea because scan is part of the wits attribute, and that is a TN of 15, and I only have 1 d12 and 1 d6 here, but I want to give it a shot and see if I can find anything of value as Iorlas walks into this shadowy place. Ooh, close. I got a 5 and a 6, so would have gotten a Tangwar rune, but that is not going to be enough, as that is an 11 versus a TN of 15, so things are going to get worse. But what this description says is, the remains of this stone house are still accessible. Inscriptions allow Iorlas to identify it as an ancient home of a noble of Arthedain. But there are also idle scrawls and foul symbols that have been etched throughout the stonework of this home that indicate that the building suffered from the ruin that Angmar brought over the city when it fell. I think a successful scan might have allowed us to find something like a treasure or something, but a failed scan roll means that Iorlas turns and looks out at the exit, the door to this house that he just entered and is looking around in, and the shadows seem to stretch, as getting out does not seem as easy as entering this house was. And you know what? I think that because that was a failed roll on scan and the door now seems so far away, maybe instead of it seeming so far away, we're going to combine our roll of 3 and 4 that we got on this table and say that now standing in the doorway of this home, having cornered Iorlas, are scavengers. Number 4 says, Iorlas stumbles upon a group of 3 highway robbers in the middle of plundering what might be a tomb. However, we're going to say that they left to corner Iorlas when they saw him walk into this dead end. Basically, there's no other way out of this house, and now they've blocked the exit. And they smile. It says, whether or not they become violent depends on how they're treated by the PCs. What treasures do they have on them, if any, will be determined by the lore master, but it would typically be 1 or 2 treasures. Yep, I think we're going to go up against 3 highwaymen right now. 3 evil men, which, conveniently, Nimloth's tier is foe slaying against. So let's go into a combat. This is not the combat I expected to have here, but I think that it makes sense. The men typically avoid this, and actually, you know what? Let's ask the telling table. This is going to be, you know what? This is going to be very unlikely, but I think that it's worth asking the telling table. Could this be Drusen's allies? Could they have come here? Could they have fled here? This is somewhere between doubtful and unthinkable, so I'm going to say that I'm going to need a result of 9, 10, or an Eye of Sauron to see if this is them. That is a 4. It is not Drusen and his dangerous fellowship that fled from Bree. Instead, these are just get-rich-quick scavengers, just robbers. So we're going to use the highway robber stat block here in the One Ring 2E, and we are going to go into combat. Is there enough time for an opening volley? I'm going to say yes. I don't know. They do have bows, but I think that they're firing into a room. I don't know if this is easy for them as much as it is for Iorlas. Would he have his bow out? I think that I'm just going to allow everybody to take some shots. So this is probably going to hurt Iorlas quite a bit as he is cornered in this room. But we have an archet bow now, so let's go ahead and fire that at one of these ruffians, and then I'll say 2 of them can get shots in from the door. The third is behind and not able to get a shot off. All right, first up is Iorlas' shot. Let's see what we get. Oh my god, I'm rolling terribly. That is only a 6 on my entire roll, which is going to come nowhere near hitting them with this as Iorlas rushes to get his archet bow out, except it's bigger and it's got more tension to it than his last bow, so when he quickly pulls it out and tries to fire a shot, it goes wide. All right, here we go. We're going to see if 2 of these people can hit Iorlas. I have a parry of 17, so they're going to have to make a roll higher than 17 to hit me, and they have a skill of 2 with their bow. So here goes. Not even close with the first one, and even worse with the second one. So they fire off, and I think that when they see, and again, it says how they react depends on how the PCs treat them. I don't think Iorlas would give them a second. He would just say like, "You scavengers, you leeches upon the glory of man." And he's going to fire, and then after all this, I think that he pulls Nimloth's tear, and maybe there's a moment of awe in this from these otherwise just highway robbers. Like, they are not well equipped. They do have spears, which is a bummer because they have reach on Iorlas, but that doesn't mechanically matter. So here we go. We're going to roll, and Iorlas is going to rush into combat. It's just going to be close combat the whole way. We are not going to be reckless, however. I don't think we're going to be playing defensive either. I think that Iorlas is going to rush in and hopefully make decisive enough blows fast enough that these men would catch on and flee, is his hope. But here goes. The first one that he is going to attack is going to use one of their resolve points to activate a fell ability, which is called Snake-like Speed. When targeted by an attack, spend a resolve to make the attack ill-favored. So he's going to force Iorlas to roll 2d12 and take the worst of the 2 results. All right, so here goes. Oh my gosh, I got a Gandalf rune and a 10 on my 2 feat dice, and then a 4 and a 1 on my skill dice for a 15. which they don't have a parry score, so I just need to beat my strength TN of 12, so that is a success, and on a 10 for feet die, that means that this is a piercing blow. And not only that, because Nimloth's Tear has foe slaying for evil men and undead, this protection roll that this man is going to have to make, this highway robber is going to have to make, is going to be ill-favored right back at him. So he tries his snake-like speed to get around, but the true power of Nimloth's Tear is unfazed by this highway robber's bravado or showmanship, as it just finds his body and cuts deeply into him. Alright, he has 2 armor, so he's going to roll 2d12 and 2d6. He does need to beat an injury rating. It is 16 for Nimloth's Tear, but he is ill-favored, so 2d12 take the lower. And that's 2 1s on the skill dice and a 9 on the feet die for an 11, which means that that is not enough to overcome the injury rating of Nimloth's Tear. And this first highway robber gets taken out in a single swing of Nimloth's Tear, because it doesn't even affect endurance. It just wounds this highway robber, and that is going to reduce his might from 1 to 0, meaning he has no actions in this combat. It does not necessarily mean that he is dead, but for the sake of this, I think that it is a grievous wound that Iorlas inflicts upon this man. And the other 2 are now standing there looking at Iorlas, this terrifying, out of nowhere ranger from the north, this Dunedain man who just came into this city that they've been looting, and they thought easy pickings. Well, maybe not. The other 2 are going to rush forward. I think that the second one is not going to be able to get into range, so he might just take his first shot with a bow, but he has to go last. The other one is going to go with his spear, which he does have 3 skill dice in, so here goes. He's going to rush forward with his spear after seeing Iorlas easily take out his friend, and we're going to roll. Ooh, that is a 3 on the feet die, plus 8, 10 is 13, is not enough to hit our parry score of 17. So that is a miss, as Iorlas is going to use his buckler to redirect the spearhead of this attack. The other one's going to shoot into this room from the doorway, and he gets a Gandalf rune, which as evil men, I believe counts as nothing. So that is another missed shot. Oh my gosh, I'm getting so lucky right now. But what an awesome way to show off Nimloth's Tear's foe slaying ability against men, as we're going to move into the second round of combat, and Iorlas is going to now swing his sword at this man who charged him with the spear. We're going to once again use the resolve point to ill-favor the roll with this sword swing, just because they have it, they're going to want to use it. And it doesn't matter, I get 2 4s on my feet dice and then 2 4s on my skill dice. 4, 4, 4, 4. But that is going to make it a 12, and since they don't have a parry score to increase the target number for my sword attacks, that is actually still a hit, which is going to deal 4 damage to this highway robber. So unlike the last one, it was not a piercing blow, which is going to allow me to deal a wound. This is just going to deal some damage to this man as I slash him across the back, and the other one is going to rush in with his spear as well. So here goes. 2 attacks from spearmen. This one is going to be an absolute huge hit for this first man. Actually, I think this is the friend rushing in from the door, and they get a total of 20 on this roll, with a 6 on one of the skill dice, so I do get to use one of their Tengwar abilities, and it seems appropriate that I use Pierce, which would increase the feet die result to +2, so that's going to make this a piercing blow instead. I will still take the damage, I think, but I do now need to make a protection roll against taking a serious wound here. 14 is the injury rating for this, and I have 2d on my leather corselet, so I'm going to roll a d12 and 2d6, hopefully beating a 14. Here goes. Oh my gosh, I just get it. A 10 on the feet die and 2 2s on the skill dice means that I'm going to narrowly avoid taking a wound. Instead, I will just take the 4 points of damage from this spear hit and be down to 22 out of 26 endurance. Okay. Even though this is just a group of highway robbers, this is not something that Iorlas wants to extend longer than he has to. Oh, the other man is up, And he also has a spear, so he's going to turn and try and take advantage. But that is going to miss, as that is a 5, 10. Oh, it's just going to hit 16, 17. So this, once again, is going to turn into a... Ooh, piercing. Pierce would not matter for this. Although it does say pierce here. So I think that that's the only one they have access to. Since pierce wouldn't matter, I'm going to go with heavy blow. And instead, this is going to really hurt, as Iorlas is going to take 8 endurance loss down to 14. Oh boy. Out of 22. And my load is at 10, so I'm about to become weary just out of taking some hits. All right. Iorlas is going to have to end this fast. He's going to attack again. Here it goes. And they're going to use their resolve to make this ill-favored. But once again, oh my gosh, that's incredible. Once again, I rolled a Gandalf rune and a 10 on my feet die. So that is once again a piercing blow against this man, who is going to be ill-favored in his protection roll against the injury rating of 16 against Nimloth's tier. And he just fails. Oh my gosh. That is an 8 plus a 3 and a 4 on the skill dice for a 15. He rolled 2 8s on his feet die, so those are really high to start with. And that is going to be a wound that is going to take out the second one of these men, and there's only one still standing. Let me go ahead and roll Awe for Iorlas. It is only a d12 and a d6, but if I can beat a TN of 12, I think that I will stand there looking at this last standing highway robber and convince him to flee while he can. Oh, so close, an 11. Instead, he doubles down and spits on the ground and says, "Those were my friends!" And his friends are still groaning on the ground, not fully dead, but certainly injured. And we're going to go into combat here. I think that was Iorlas' attack, so this man gets a d12 and 3 d6 for his spear attack. 10, 14 is going to be a miss, as Iorlas definitely maneuvers and parries with his sword. He rushes past him. Iorlas is going to get a chance to attack. However, still has resolve, so still going to make it harder. Oh, and that is a 2, so Iorlas, in these cramped quarters of this house, now all of a sudden with 2 men on the ground, kind of like trying to get out of the fray, just grab their wounds and everything like that. It is becoming much too difficult to really maneuver in here. It might be something where Iorlas actually is going to get out of here before them. If he can reposition himself, I think might make sense. Oh my goodness, I rolled an Eye of Sauron for this last man, and that is a critical for him. So that means this is a piercing blow. I'm going to take 4 damage no matter what, which is going to bring me down a lot. It's going to bring me down to my load. This is very bad. To be in Fornost Erain, this hurt right now is going to be very bad. I need to make a protection roll against a 14, and I fail, taking... Oh no, that is a success. I cannot count. That is 5, 9, and 5 is 14 exactly. Whew. Oh man. So I narrowly avoid this, but take 4 endurance loss, bringing my endurance down to my load, which is going to make me weary. Oh boy, let's look up what weary does. Ooh, this is brutal. When a weary hero is making a roll, all of the dice, the d6s that show up with a 1, 2, or 3 are effectively considered to be 0 instead. So if I'm not rolling 4s, 5s, and 6s on my skill dice, then I am not getting any value whatsoever. Oh, that is brutal. This is bad. All right. And I'm down to 10 on my endurance. This is not good at all. It is a 1v1, but this is looking pretty bad for Iorlas, who is going to continue to swing Nimloth's tier. I don't think I can move to rearward stance and then attempt to flee. Let me actually look up the rules for that. It says here that, "Fly, you fools." Great. Call out box. Wonderful. Player heroes facing insurmountable odds and intending to leave the fight have 2 options. Assume a rearward stance and then choose to escape when their turn comes. No roll required. This also works for adversaries. And otherwise, they can assume a defensive stance, rolling for their attack normally. If their attack is a success, they don't deal damage but manage to leave the battlefield instead. If the attack fails, the combatant remains engaged. I think that we described this spearman, this highway robber, rushing with his spear and managing to get Iorlas quite good, but, Iorlas had turned him at one point, parrying, and has injured his two friends. I think that now maybe the positioning of the room has changed and Iorlas is the one near the door. Iorlas is holding a puncture wound in his side, and he's looking at this man who's staring at him, and with the light coming through the door, he can see this man. He looks ragged. This man looks like he is living on rough times. This man looks like he has succumbed to some terrible things, certainly probably no stranger to the misdeeds that Iorlas would find incredibly disappointing and frustrating. And as much as he wants to use Nimloth's tear to put down these evil men, these are not the evil men that Gandalf sent him to find in this city. And I think that he waits half a second, looks at the man, looks at his injured friends, looks at the door, and then Iorlas is going to flee through the door and out. Now, these three robbers are still here in the city. Are they going to be a problem? Maybe, maybe not, I don't know. But Iorlas is currently weary and injured, not wounded mechanically, but injured, and is hobbling through the haunted streets of Fornost Erain, looking for something. He is holding his side. I think that, we would see, the camera would follow him, and out that door, maybe these robbers also decide it's not worth it to go pursue this man. Maybe Iorlas did kill the other two, and this last man is standing there, but we would see the blood trail, drips of blood on these stones and these roots and these ragged cobblestone streets that have been just torn up by years and years of trees, and not trees that have grown into a forest, but gnarled, not healthy. That's why they might call this place cursed, is that the trees are spindly and bare, but they continue to grow and break pieces of stone into rubble. And Iorlas takes a seat, tries to catch his breath. Iorlas is going to take a short rest. Short rests are in the middle of the day. It says if precise timing is needed, it's probably about an hour of inactivity. He walks away, he has his sword out, and he kind of just sits and back up against a cool piece of stone where he has a good view of his surroundings, knowing if anything is coming near him, but he just kind of takes the time to tend to his wounds. We do have 2 in healing, which I don't know if it matters here. I don't think it does. It does not, but with a short rest, I'm going to recover a number of endurance equal to my strength rating, which is 6, bringing me to 16 out of 26, removing the weary tag, and now we are a little bit more equipped for moving on here. I do think that if I rolled healing right now, and maybe said that, I dressed this wound a little bit, maybe I could heal another, half of that. I'm going to say that. I'm going to be nice to myself. I'm going to roll a d12 and 2d6 for my healing skill and see if I can overcome my heart TN of 12. I cannot. That is a failure. So I think that Iorlas tries to staunch his wound. He's taking an hour to just kind of do this, but every time he does, he can't get his bandages to stay. Something about this place is just not conducive to him taking a breather and resting. And because that's a failure, I'm going to go ahead and roll ill-favored again on the events table of ruins and broken stones and see what it is we might come up against. A 1 and a 5. Let's see which is more appropriate. Oh my god, 1. Finally! Ooh, this is great, actually. 1 says forgotten words. I think that Iorlas is sitting there just tending to his wounds, healing, and he looks across what was once probably a great plaza, a great square, an open place in the city of Fornost Erain, and he sees a wall that still stands. On it, there's an inscription in Adunaic. And this requires a lore roll in order to translate, and lore is one of our best skills. We have 3 ranks in lore: as a messenger, as a Dunedain, a ranger, a traveler. One of the things that Iorlas is someone who wants to learn about places and culture and history, so that way when he goes to new places and he meets new peoples and new folks, he can relate to them. He can bring them and rally them to what they care about. and find common ground. So we are going to roll lore, and this is in wit, so it is against a TN of 15, but we have 3d6. Oh, I kind of want to spend a hope to make sure I roll this. Do I do it? I could use... I don't know that any of my distinctive features are actually relevant, so I'm just going to roll and hope. Oh, no. That is an Eye of Sauron. And then I have a 5, a 4, and a 1 for a 10. That is a failure. That is an eye. So our eye awareness is going to go up 1 to 8. Still not anywhere near a threshold. However, I need to roll on the ill fortune table. So let's go ahead and roll on that. I get a 3, which says, unexpected enemies emerge or are sighted. Yeah, I was worried about this. I'm going to be very kind to myself and give Iorlas another chance to translate this in a moment. He does not get the chance to, because as soon as he gets up and begins walking over his short rest over, he walks forward into this enormous square, which is upheaval of stone and ground in what was once a great place of a city, to look at this mural. And out of the shadows comes an undead. This is a fell wraith. And this is where we will pick up next time in Fornost Erain. Thank you, as always, for listening to an episode of the One Ring 2nd Edition here on the Rene Plays Games podcast feed. This one was a little more freeform, and we're just trying to feel it out here as we explore this city. I'm not sure. I think I might have been a little too hard on myself, but that's okay. It's all about the story and the obstacles and what Iorlas is going to have to overcome in order to see his quests done. So I hope that you are enjoying it, and I hope that you want to hear more. If you do, you can always follow me on social medias. Find me anywhere at Rene Plays Games Pod. You can email me at reneplaysgamespod@gmail.com if you want to talk to me about anything or give me ideas or constructive criticism or anything like that. You can also do that at the DMs After Dark Discord. Links are always in the description for that. Come hang out. It's a fun place. Please leave a rating and review on your podcatcher of choice. It just helps my podcast find more people on their For You pages or recommended or similar or anything like that. And I have a Ko-fi page if you feel insanely generous and want to help cover the cost of podcast hosting and the transcription software and video software I use for interviews, but no pressure. This is the most I've done for outro spiel stuff in a while, so until next time, maybe go investigate an abandoned place. See what's up. I probably shouldn't recommend that. Don't do that.